Please don't do this. Temperance Blackwell's voice trembled as the cowboy's calloused hands found her waist in the dim bedroom, her towering 6'3" frame pressed against the log wall. No one must know. The giant widow's whispered warning hung in the air like smoke, desperate and afraid. But Caleb Ridge, the ranch hand who stood 7 inches shorter and earned a fraction of what she was worth, pulled her closer with a determination that made her knees weak. "I don't care who knows," he breathed against her neck, his fingers tracing the curve of her spine. "I want you." And right there, in the bedroom where her late husband had never once made her feel like a woman instead of a workhorse, the cowboy began unbuttoning her dress with steady, reverent hands, while the afternoon sun filtered through lace curtains that had witnessed only loneliness for 3 long years. But to understand how they got here, you have to go back 8 hours earlier, to the moment everything changed. That morning, Temperance stood at the counter of Morrison's General Store in Redemption Creek, Montana, her shoulders hunched like always, trying to make herself smaller. She was buying fence wire and coffee, the same things she bought every week, keeping her eyes down because she knew what people saw when they looked at her. A giant, a woman who stood taller than most men. Unnatural, they whispered, mannish, too big to be a real lady. "Miss Blackwell," Vernon Pritchard's oiled voice cut through the store's chatter. He was a big man himself, wealthy, with a ranch 3 times the size of hers and a smile that never reached his eyes. "I trust you've given more thought to my proposal." Temperance's jaw tightened. This was the 3rd time he'd asked for her hand in marriage, the 3rd time in front of witnesses. "Mr. Pritchard, my answer ain't changed. I'm managing just fine on my own." "Are you, though?" His voice rose, making sure everyone in the store could hear. "A woman your size, Lord knows you're strong as an ox, but even oxen need a driver, don't they? You've been widowed 3 years now. That ranch is failing, and everyone knows it. You need a man's name, a man's guidance." He stepped closer, and she could smell the pomade in his hair. "Even if you don't quite fit the role of a proper wife, I'm willing to overlook your proportions." The store went silent. Heat crawled up Temperance's neck. She was 35 years old, and she'd heard variations of this her entire life. Too tall, too strong, too much, never enough. The lady said no. The voice came from behind her, quiet but firm as bedrock. Caleb Ridge stepped up beside her, his worn hat in his hands, his gray eyes steady on Pritchard. He barely came up to Temperance's shoulder, but there was nothing small about the way he stood. "Seems clear enough to me." Pritchard's face flushed red. "This ain't your concern, Drifter. You're just hired help. Or are you confused about your station because she's lettin'? You work her ranch?" "I ain't confused about nothing." Caleb's voice stayed level, but Temperance could see his knuckles white around his hat brim. "Miss Blackwell runs that ranch better than any man I've known. She don't need rescuing, and she sure as hell don't need your charity." The words hit Temperance like a physical thing. In 8 months of working for her, Caleb had been respectful, quiet, hard-working, but no one had ever defended her like this. Not even Silas, her late husband, who'd married her because he needed strong hands for ranch work, not because he'd wanted her. Pritchard's eyes narrowed, darting between them. "I see. So that's how it is. The giant widow and her pet cowboy. Tell me, Caleb, what exactly are you getting paid for over there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like—" "That's enough." Temperance grabbed her supplies, her hands shaking with humiliation and rage. "Come on, Caleb, we're leaving." She walked out of that store with her head high, but inside, she was crumbling. Because Pritchard had just said out loud what she'd feared for months, that people were talking, that they were watching, that whatever she felt for Caleb Ridge, whatever had been building between them in stolen glances and accidental touches, was about to destroy everything she'd worked so hard to protect. The ride back to the ranch was silent. Temperance drove the wagon, and Caleb sat beside her, close enough that their arms almost touched, close enough that she could feel the heat of him in the cool morning air. "You shouldn't have done that," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Done what? Told the truth?" "Pritchard's on the town council. He's got the banker's ear. One word from him, and they could call in my loan. I could lose everything, Caleb. The ranch, the land, all of it. Then he's a coward and a bully." Caleb's voice was tight with anger. "And every word he said about you was a damn lie." Temperance's throat went thick. "You don't understand. People like me, women like me, we don't get to choose what we want. We take what's offered, and we're grateful for it. Silas married me because I could work like a man. Pritchard wants to marry me for my land. That's just how it is when you're built like I am." The wagon hit a rut, jolting them together. Caleb's hand shot out to steady her, landing on her arm, and neither of them moved to break the contact. "That ain't how it should be," he said quietly. "And that ain't how I see you." "How do you see me?" The question escaped before she could stop it, raw and desperate and too revealing. Caleb turned to look at her fully, and the expression on his face made her heart stutter in her chest. "Like you're the most beautiful woman I've ever known. Like you're strong and kind and brave. Like every man who's ever made you feel less than that was a fool and a liar." Temperance pulled the wagon to a stop right there in the middle of the road. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to grip the reins to steady them. "Don't say things like that to me. Please, Caleb, don't make me hope for something I can't have." "Why can't you have it?" "Because look at us," her voice cracked. "You're 29 and I'm 35. I'm 6 inches taller than you. I'm your employer. The town already thinks I'm unnatural, and if they even suspected that I had feelings for you, that I've been having feelings for you since the day you gentled that spooked mare in the north pasture, they'd crucify both of us. They'd say I was taking advantage of you. They'd say you were only here for my land. They'd say, I don't care what they'd say." Caleb's hand moved from her arm to her face, his rough palm cupping her cheek with such tenderness that tears sprang to her eyes. "Temperance, I've been drifting my whole adult life. Montana to Texas and back again. I ain't never stayed nowhere longer than a season. But then I came here. I met you. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to stay. Not for the work, not for the wages, for you." "You can't mean that." But even as she said it, she was leaning into his touch, starving for it. "I've meant it for months. I just didn't know if you—" He swallowed hard. "If you could ever see me as more than just hired help." "See you?" Temperance laughed, but it came out like a sob. "Caleb, I see you in my sleep. I see you every time I close my eyes. You're all I think about, and it's terrifying because we can't. Why not? Because I can't lose this ranch. It's all I have left. It's the only thing that makes me worth something in this town's eyes. And if Pritchard finds out about us, he'll use it. He'll convince the bank I'm unfit, that I need a man's guidance, that I'm behaving improperly with an employee. He wants this land, Caleb, and he'll take any excuse to get it." Caleb's jaw set in that stubborn way she'd come to recognize. "Then we'll leave. We'll sell the ranch and go somewhere nobody knows us. California, Oregon, somewhere you can breathe. This land is all I have?" "No." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, catching a tear she didn't know had fallen. "You have you, Tempe. You have your strength and your heart and your courage. And if you'll have me, you have me too. All of me, for as long as you want me." The world seemed to stop. The wind, the birds, even her own breathing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you, Temperance Blackwell. I have for months, and I'm tired of pretending I don't." Temperance couldn't breathe. The words hung between them like something sacred and terrifying all at once. "I love you." 3 words she'd never heard spoken with that kind of raw honesty. Silas had never said them, not once in their 5 years of marriage. Her father had believed love was weakness, and now this cowboy, this beautiful, impossible man, was offering her something she'd stopped believing existed. "You don't love me," she whispered, but her hand had moved to cover his where it still rested against her face. "You can't. You barely know me. I know you wake before dawn every day and check on the animals before you even make coffee. I know you sing to the horses when you think no one's listening, and your voice is the prettiest thing I've ever heard. I know you saved 3 months of egg money to buy medicine for old Pete's daughter when she took sick, and you never told a soul. I know you're scared of thunderstorms, but you'd never admit it. I know you take your coffee black because Silas told you sugar was a waste, but I've seen you look at the honey jar like you're starving for something sweet." Each word landed like a blow to her chest. He'd been watching, really watching, seeing her in ways no one ever had. "Caleb, even if what you're saying is true, even if you really feel this, it doesn't change what we are, what people will say, what they'll do." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I'm terrified." "I know." He shifted closer on the wagon bench, and she could smell him, leather and hay and honest sweat. "But Tempe, ain't you more terrified of spending the rest of your life pretending you don't feel this too? Of marrying some man like Pritchard who sees you as property? Of never knowing what it's like to be loved the way you deserve?" "The way I deserve?" She laughed bitterly. "Caleb, look at me. Really look. I'm a giant. I'm perfect." He said it so simply, so certainly, that it stole her breath. "You're perfect, Temperance, and I'm tired of watching you make yourself small for people who ain't worth your shadow." Something inside her chest cracked open, a dam she'd been holding back for 35 years. If we do this, if I let myself feel this, there's no going back. The town will know. Pritchard will know, and he'll come for this ranch with everything he has. "Let him come." There was steel in Caleb's voice now. "I ain't afraid of Vernon Pritchard or anyone else in this town. Are you?" "Yes." The word came out like a confession. "I'm afraid of losing everything. I'm afraid of losing you. I'm afraid that one day you'll wake up and realize what everyone else already knows, that I'm too much woman for any man, especially one as good as you." Caleb's other hand came up to frame her face, forcing her to meet his eyes, those steady gray eyes that had haunted her dreams for months. "Temperance Blackwell, you listen to me. I'm a drifter with nothing to my name but a good horse and a strong back. I've got no family, no land, no prospects. You could have any man in this territory if they had half a brain and a quarter of the courage. The only thing I'm afraid of is that one day you'll wake up and realize you're too much woman for me, that I ain't near good enough for you." "That's crazy," her voice broke. You're everything. You're kind and brave, and you see me, Caleb. You really see me. No one's ever—" She couldn't finish. The tears were coming too fast now. "Then let me keep seeing you." His forehead touched hers, and the intimacy of it made her whole body tremble. "Let me love you the way you deserve." Out loud, where everyone can see. "I don't want to hide in shadows, Tempe. I want the whole world to know that you're mine and I'm yours. The whole world will crucify us. Then we'll burn together." He pulled back just enough to look at her, and there was something fierce and wild in his expression. "I mean it, Temperance. I'd rather burn with you than live safe without you." The wagon creaked beneath them. Somewhere in the distance a meadowlark sang, and Temperance Blackwell made a decision that would change everything. "Take me home," she whispered. "Please, just take me home." She didn't have to explain what she meant. Caleb understood. She could see it in the way his breath caught, in the way his pupils dilated, in the careful reverence with which he took the reins from her shaking hands. The ride back to the ranch felt like it took hours and seconds all at once. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The air between them was electric, charged with 8 months of longing and restraint finally breaking free. When they pulled up to the ranch house, the sturdy log cabin Silas had built but never made feel like home, Caleb helped her down from the wagon. His hands lingered on her waist, and she could feel the tremor in his fingers. He was nervous. This beautiful, brave man was nervous because of her. "We don't have to," he started, but she pressed her fingers to his lips. "I want to," she said quietly. "I'm terrified, and I know everything could fall apart tomorrow, but right now, in this moment, I want to stop being afraid. I want to let myself have this, have you." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "If you'll have me. If I'll have you." Caleb's laugh was shaky and disbelieving. "Tempe, I'd have you any way you'd let me. Today, tomorrow, for the rest of my life if you'd let me." She took his hand, his smaller calloused hand in her larger one, and led him toward the house. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This was insane, reckless, everything she'd spent 3 years of widowhood avoiding. But as she opened the door and led Caleb inside, into the cool dimness of the home she'd lived in but never truly inhabited, Temperance realized she was tired of being safe, tired of being small, tired of living half a life because she was too afraid of what people might say. The bedroom looked different in the afternoon light. The lace curtains Silas's mother had hung fluttered in the breeze from the open window. The quilt on the bed, the one Temperance had stitched herself during the long, lonely winter after Silas died, was pulled tight and neat like it always was. This room had only ever known loneliness, practical, dutiful coupling that left her feeling more alone than before. But as Caleb closed the door behind them, as he looked at her with such naked want and tenderness, Temperance felt something shift in the very air. "You're sure?" he asked one more time, and the fact that he was still asking, still giving her a choice, still treating her like something precious, it undid her completely. "I've never been more sure of anything," she said, and meant it. Caleb crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands found her waist and then her back, pulling her down toward him because she was too tall for him to reach otherwise. The kiss was nothing like she expected. It was gentle and fierce all at once, hungry but reverent, like he was trying to pour 8 months of longing into a single moment. Temperance's hands found his shoulders, then his hair, knocking his hat to the floor. She pulled him closer, lifting him slightly because she could, because her strength wasn't something to be ashamed of with him, because he'd called her perfect. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb's hands moved to the buttons of her dress, and that's when reality crashed back in. "Please don't do this," she whispered, even as her body leaned into his touch, even as every fiber of her being screamed, "Yes, please, more." "No one must know." His hands stilled. "Tempe, I mean it, Caleb. If anyone finds out, if the town finds out—" Her voice was shaking now, panic rising. "They'll say terrible things. They'll say I seduced you, that I'm paying you in other ways. Pritchard will use this. He'll destroy me. He'll take everything. Look at me." Caleb's voice was firm but gentle. "Look at me, Temperance." She did, and the expression on his face made her want to cry. "I don't care who knows," he said quietly, his hands still resting on her waist, steady and sure. "I don't care what they say. I want you. Not your land, not your money. You. Just you. And I ain't gonna hide that like it's something shameful." "But Caleb—" "No." He pulled her closer, his forehead pressing to hers again. "Listen to me. I spent 29 years drifting because I never had nothing worth staying for. But you're worth staying for. You're worth fighting for. And if loving you costs me everything, then so be it. At least I'll have loved you." The tears came then, hot and fast down her cheeks. "You're going to break my heart." "No." His thumbs wiped at her tears. "I'm going to spend every day of my life proving to you that you deserve to be loved like this, fierce and true and out loud. I'm going to show you what it means to be wanted. Not needed, not used, but wanted, for exactly who you are." "I don't know how to do this," she confessed. "I don't know how to be loved." "Then we'll learn together." And with those words, Caleb Ridge kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands resuming their work on the buttons of her dress with slow, deliberate care. And Temperance stopped saying no, stopped warning him, stopped being afraid. For the first time in her entire life, she let herself be exactly what she was. The afternoon sun painted golden stripes across the bedroom floor, and Temperance felt like she was waking up from a 35-year sleep. Caleb's hands were steady as he worked the buttons of her dress, one by one, like each one was a promise he was making. His touch was nothing like Silas's hurried, practical handling. This was different. This was reverent. "You're shaken," he murmured against her collarbone, and she realized he was right. Her whole body trembled like a leaf in a storm. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Of me? Of this? Of how much I want this? Want you." Her hands gripped his shoulders, steadying herself. "I've spent my whole life being told I'm too much, too tall, too strong, too independent. Silas married me because he needed help running the ranch. He never once looked at me the way you're looking at me right now." Caleb's hands stilled. He stepped back just enough to meet her eyes, and what she saw there made her chest ache. "How did he look at you?" "Like I was useful, like I was a good investment." The words tasted bitter. "We were married 5 years, and he never once made me feel like a woman. I was just another pair of hands, another body to do work." Something dark and angry flashed across Caleb's face. Then he was a damn fool who didn't deserve you. His hands moved to cup her face, forcing her to hold his gaze. "You're not too much, Temperance. You're not too anything. You're perfect exactly as you are, and any man who couldn't see that was blind and stupid. You're the only person who's ever said that to me. Then I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives if you'll let me." He kissed her softly, then pulled back with a small smile. "You know what I thought the first time I saw you? That I was a giant?" The old hurt leaked through despite herself. "That you were the most magnificent woman I'd ever laid eyes on." His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "You were in the north pasture, trying to gentle that black mare everyone said was unbreakable. You weren't forcing her or yelling at her. You were just patient, strong but gentle. And when she finally let you touch her, when she nuzzled into your hand, I thought, that's a woman who knows her own strength and ain't afraid of it." Temperance felt something crack wide open inside her chest. "I thought you didn't notice me that day." "I noticed everything." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I noticed the way you move, graceful even though you think you're clumsy. I noticed the way you talk to the animals like they understand every word. I noticed that you always take the smallest portion at supper and give me the rest. I noticed that you hum when you're content and go real quiet when you're hurtin'. I've been noticing you for 8 months, Temperance, and there ain't a single thing about you I'd change. You're going to make me cry again. But she was smiling through the tears now. Good, he resumed, unbuttoning her dress, slower now, more deliberate. Cry if you need to, laugh if you want to, be exactly who you are, Tempe. That's all I've ever wanted from you. The dress fell away, pooling at her feet, and Temperance fought the instinct to cover herself, to make herself smaller, to hide. But Caleb's expression stopped her. He looked at her like she was something holy, something worth worshipping. My God, he breathed, you're beautiful. No one had ever called her beautiful before. Handsome, maybe, sturdy, capable, but never beautiful. The word made something inside her chest expand until she thought she might burst with it. I'm not, she started, but he pressed a finger to her lips. Don't argue with me about this. His hands traced down her arms, her sides, learning the shape of her like she was a map he wanted to memorize. You're beautiful, Temperance, strong and soft all at once, powerful and gentle. Every inch of you is exactly right. She helped him with his own clothes then, her larger hands fumbling with buttons and buckles, both of them laughing nervously when things got tangled. And that was new too, laughter in the bedroom, joy instead of just duty. When they finally came together on that bed, the bed where she'd spent 3 years sleeping alone, the bed where Silas had never once made her feel desired, everything changed. Caleb touched her like she was precious, like she was delicate despite her size, like every part of her mattered. Tell me what you need, he whispered against her neck. She nearly sobbed because no one had ever asked her that before. No one had ever cared what she needed. I don't know, she admitted. Silas never asked. He just did what he needed, and that was that. Caleb pulled back to look at her, and there was fury in his eyes now. He never asked what you wanted? It wasn't that kind of marriage. Well, this is that kind of love. His voice was fierce. You tell me what feels good. You tell me what you want. You tell me if something don't feel right. This ain't about me taken from you, Tempe. This is about us given to each other. You understand? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. And then Caleb set about proving every word he'd said. He learned her body like it was a language he was determined to become fluent in. He paid attention to every gasp, every sigh, every time her fingers tightened in his hair or her back arched off the bed. He was patient and attentive and so achingly tender that Temperance felt like she was being rebuilt from the inside out. I love you, she gasped at some point, the words pulled from somewhere deep and true. God help me, Caleb. I love you. I know. His voice was rough with emotion. I know, sweetheart. I've got you. I've got you. And he did. For the first time in her life, someone had her, not her labor or her land or her usefulness, just her, all of her, the parts she'd been taught to hide and the parts she'd been told were too much, and the parts that even she didn't know existed until he found them. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the afternoon light, both breathing hard, both trembling. Caleb's head rested on her chest, and she marveled at how right it felt to hold him, to be strong enough to cradle him against her, to have that strength be something beautiful instead of something shameful. What do we do now? She asked quietly, running her fingers through his hair. Now? He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her with such love it made her heart hurt. Now I'm going to hold you for a while. Then we're going to get dressed and have some supper. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to ride into town and tell everyone who'll listen that I'm courting Temperance Blackwell and I intend to marry her if she'll have me. Her breath caught. Caleb, we can't. The town will. Let him talk. He kissed her softly. I spent my whole life invisible, Tempe. Just another drifter nobody notices or remembers. But with you, I feel seen. I feel like I matter. And I'll be damned if I'm going to hide the best thing that ever happened to me just because some small-minded folks can't see past their own noses. Pritchard will use this against us, against me. Probably. Caleb's jaw set in that stubborn way. But here's what I'm thinking. We beat him to it. We control the story. Tomorrow we go into town together. We walk into that church service side by side. We let everyone see that we're together and we're proud of it. We don't give them the chance to twist it into something dirty. You want to announce it? In church? Temperance's eyes went wide. I want to claim you properly, court you the right way. Ask your hand in marriage where God and everyone can witness it. He smiled. Unless you think that's too bold? Too bold? She laughed, and it came out a little wild. Caleb, it's insane. It's social suicide. It's honest. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. And I'm tired of lies and shame and hiding, ain't you? She was. God, she was so tired of making herself small, of apologizing for existing, of living half a life because she was too afraid of what people might think. What if they reject us? What if the whole town turns against us? Then we'll leave. We'll sell the ranch and go somewhere else, somewhere nobody knows us, somewhere you can walk down the street holding my hand without fear and judgment. His voice softened. But Tempe, I don't think it'll go that way. I think there's more good people in this town than you realize. People who've seen you struggle these last 3 years. People who know Pritchard's a bully. People who might just surprise you. You're an optimist. I'm a man in love, he grinned. Makes me hopeful. Temperance pulled him back down against her chest, holding him tight. Outside, the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they'd face the town and all its judgment. Tomorrow, Vernon Pritchard would learn that Temperance Blackwell was no longer available for his schemes. But right now, in this moment, wrapped in Caleb Ridge's arms, Temperance felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt free. Ask me, she whispered. Ask you what? What you said you'd ask in front of God and everyone. Ask me now, here, just us. Caleb shifted, propping himself up so he could look at her properly. His gray eyes were serious now, intense. Temperance Blackwell, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving to you that you're worthy of love? Will you let me be the man who gets to wake up next to you every morning and go to sleep holding you every night? Will you take a chance on a drifter who ain't got much to offer except his whole heart? The tears came again, but they were good tears this time. Happy tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Caleb Ridge, I'll marry you. I'll take that chance. A loud knock at the front door cut her off. They both froze. Miss Blackwell, a voice called out. Thomas Morrison from the general store. Got a delivery for you. Some supplies you ordered came in. Temperance's eyes went wide with panic. They were both undressed, hair mussed, the room smelling of sex and sweat and everything the town would condemn. If Morrison came inside, if he saw, but Caleb just smiled. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then climbed out of bed and started pulling on his clothes. Let him see, he said quietly. Let the whole town see. I ain't ashamed of loving you, Temperance, and you shouldn't be either. Her heart was pounding, but as she watched him button his shirt, watched him face the door with his shoulders back and his head high, something shifted inside her. He was right. She was tired of shame, tired of hiding, tired of living like her love was something dirty instead of something beautiful. So Temperance Blackwell got out of bed, pulled on her dress, and walked toward the door with her head held high. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Thomas Morrison stood on the porch with a crate of supplies, his eyes going wide when Caleb opened the door. The cowboy's shirt was half-buttoned, his hair mussed, and behind him, Temperance appeared in the doorway, her dress hastily fastened, her long hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its usual tight braid. There was no hiding what had happened here, no pretending this was just employer and employee maintaining proper distance. Morrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I brought your supplies, Miss Blackwell. Thank you, Thomas. Temperance's voice was steady even though her heart hammered against her ribs. Just set them on the porch if you would. But Morrison wasn't looking at the supplies anymore. He was looking between them, his face flushing red, and Temperance could practically see him calculating how fast he could get back to town to spread the news. The giant widow and her hired hand, caught together, improper, scandalous, exactly what Vernon Pritchard had implied at the store that morning. Thomas, Caleb's voice cut through the awkward silence. Before you go running back to town with whatever you think you saw, let me make something real clear. I'm courting Miss Blackwell. Have been for a while now, if I'm honest. And come tomorrow morning, I intend to ask for her hand in marriage proper, in front of the whole congregation at Sunday service. Morrison's eyes went even wider. You're what? You heard me. Caleb moved to stand beside Temperance, and she felt his hand find hers, their fingers lacing together. I love this woman. I'm going to marry her if she'll have me, and I don't much care what anyone in Redemption Creek thinks about it. But and she's, Morrison stammered, looking at their joined hands, at the height difference, at everything the town would whisper about. I'm a man in love with a woman who's stronger, smarter, and better than I deserve, Caleb finished for him. That about sum it up? Temperance's throat went tight. She'd spent 3 years as a widow being careful, being proper, being everything the town expected, and here was Caleb, throwing all of that caution to the wind, claiming her openly where anyone could see. "Thomas," she said quietly, squeezing Caleb's hand for courage. "You can tell whoever you want what you saw here today. Tell them I've found a good man who treats me with kindness and respect. Tell them I'm happy for the first time in years. Tell them—" She paused, then lifted her chin. "Tell them Temperance Blackwell ain't afraid anymore." Morrison nodded slowly, set down the crate, and backed away toward his wagon. They watched him drive off, dust kicking up behind the wheels, and Temperance knew that by nightfall, every person in Redemption Creek would know. By morning, Vernon Pritchard would know. "You ready for this?" Caleb asked softly. "No?" She turned to face him, this beautiful man who'd somehow seen past everything she'd been, taught to hate about herself. "But I'm doing it anyway." That night, they sat on the porch together watching the stars come out, talking about their future, about whether to stay and fight for the ranch or sell it and start fresh somewhere else, about what kind of wedding they wanted, about children, maybe, if God blessed them, about all the small, ordinary dreams Temperance had stopped letting herself have. "I'm still scared," she admitted as the moon rose over the mountains, "scared of what tomorrow brings, scared of losing everything." "You won't lose everything." Caleb's arm was solid around her shoulders. "Worst case, you lose the ranch, but you keep me, you keep yourself, you keep this—" He tapped her chest over her heart. "This courage that's been in you all along, that's worth more than any piece of land." "When did you get so wise?" "About the same time I fell in love with a woman who taught me what bravery really looks like." He kissed her temple. "You've been fighting alone for 3 years, Tempe. You don't have to fight alone anymore." And for the first time since Silas died, Temperance believed that might actually be true. Sunday morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Temperance put on her best dress, the deep blue one she'd made herself but never worn because it made her feel too visible, too feminine, too much. Caleb wore his cleanest shirt and the hat he saved for special occasions. Together, they rode into town in the wagon, and Temperance felt every eye on them as they passed. The church was packed when they arrived. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the pews like wildfire. Temperance held her head high as she walked down the aisle, Caleb's hand firm in hers. They found a spot in the middle, not hiding in the back, but not presuming the front either. Vernon Pritchard sat 3 rows ahead, his neck red above his collar. When he turned to look at them, his eyes were full of fury. But Caleb just smiled at him, polite and unbothered, and Temperance felt something powerful surge through her chest. She wasn't afraid anymore. Reverend Matthews began the service, but Temperance barely heard the words. She was too aware of Caleb beside her, of the weight of the town's judgment, of the future hanging in the balance. When the Reverend asked if anyone had announcements to share, Caleb stood up. The church went silent. "Begging your pardon, Reverend," Caleb said, his voice clear and strong, "but I got something I need to say in front of God in this community." He turned to face Temperance, and she saw his hands trembling slightly. Nervous, but determined. He took both her hands in his right there in front of everyone. "Temperance Blackwell, you're the finest woman I've ever known. You're strong and kind and brave, and I count myself the luckiest man alive that you'd even consider having me. So I'm asking you now, in front of everyone, will you marry me?" The church erupted. Some gasps of shock, some murmurs of approval, some sounds of outrage. But Temperance didn't hear any of it. She only heard her own voice, clear and certain, saying the word that would change everything. "Yes." Caleb's face split into the widest grin she'd ever seen. He pulled her to her feet, had to reach up to do it because she was so much taller, and kissed her right there in the middle of Sunday service. And Temperance kissed him back, not caring who saw, not caring what they thought. She was done being small, done being ashamed, done living half a life. The applause started somewhere in the back. Old Mrs. Henderson, who'd buried 3 husbands and knew something about finding love against the odds. Then it spread, slowly at first, then building. Not everyone clapped. Vernon Pritchard stormed out and a few others followed, but more stayed, more smiled, more came up after the service to offer congratulations. "You surprised me, Miss Blackwell," Thomas Morrison said, shaking both their hands, "but I think maybe this town needed surprising." And as Temperance and Caleb walked out of that church together, engaged and unashamed, Temperance realized something profound. She'd been so afraid of losing everything that she'd never let herself have anything. But now, with Caleb's hand in hers and her head held high, she understood that love, real, honest, brave love, was worth any price. They'd face whatever came next together, and that made all the difference. So that's their story. The giant widow who learned she wasn't too much, and the cowboy who showed her she was exactly enough. Where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another tale of courage, love, and second chances. And let us know, what time is it where you are right now? We love hearing from viewers all around the world.